The streets of Davao are alive with noise and movement, but for Arnel, they are not just busy, they are his workplace and his reality. Every afternoon, after finishing his classes, he walks through crowded sidewalks carrying a small basket filled with homemade snacks his mother prepared earlier that day. The coins he earns may seem small to others, but for him, they mean rice on the table and medicine when his mother's cough worsens. His father passed away years ago, leaving his mother to raise him alone, and now, at just 16, Arnel shoulders responsibilities most boys his age cannot even imagine. He often feels tired, his hands rough from work, his legs aching from hours of standing. Yet he greets customers with a gentle smile, careful never to let his weariness show. To his classmates, he is simply quiet and hardworking, but few know that when the school day ends, his second shift begins. Sometimes, hunger gnaws at him because the snacks he sells are not for him to eat. Other times, he watches groups of teenagers laughing in cafes, wishing, just for a moment, that he too could live without worry. Still, Arnel never complains. He tells himself that this sacrifice is not forever. Every peso saved brings him closer to his dream of finishing school and giving his mother a life free from struggle. Beneath his modest appearance lies a heart filled with determination, hope, and a quiet strength that keeps him moving forward despite the heavy weight he carries. One rainy afternoon, as Arnel stood under a narrow shop awning to shield his snacks from getting wet, he noticed an elderly man sitting alone by the roadside. The man's clothes were soaked through, his thin frame shivering in the downpour, and his frail hands trembled as he tried to cover his head with a torn piece of cardboard. People hurried past him, umbrellas raised high, their eyes fixed forward, determined not to stop. Some glanced at him briefly but quickly turned away, unwilling to be delayed by another's misfortune. Arnel's gaze lingered. Something in the man's eyes, a mixture of exhaustion and quiet desperation, pulled at his heart. The old man looked not only hungry but forgotten, as if he no longer existed in the eyes of the world. Arnel clutched the few pesos he had earned that day. It wasn't much, barely enough to buy a simple dinner for himself and his mother. His stomach tightened as he thought of her waiting at home, counting on him to bring something back. For a moment, Arnel considered walking away like everyone else. After all, he had his own problems to worry about. Yet his feet stayed rooted to the ground. His mother had always told him, "Son, no matter how little we have, there is always room to give." Those words echoed inside him now. He knew that if he walked away, the memory of the shivering man would follow him home, heavier than any hunger he might feel. With the rain still pouring, Arnel tightened his grip on the basket in his hands. Inside were the last few pieces of bread and snacks, his small hope of making enough to buy rice that evening. He glanced at the trembling old man again, his heart battling between duty and compassion. His mother's face flashed in his mind, tired but always gentle, reminding him that kindness was never wasted. Slowly, Arnel walked toward the man. Kneeling beside him, he pulled out one of the neatly wrapped snacks and placed it into the man's hands. "Here, sir," he said softly, his voice almost drowned by the sound of the rain. The man looked up in surprise, his eyes glistening with tears. "But, this is your food to sell," he whispered, his voice weak and shaky. Arnel shook his head and managed a small smile. "It's okay. You need it more than I do." Without hesitation, he opened his umbrella and held it over the man's frail shoulders, letting his own back get wet as the rain continued to fall. The old man clutched the bread as if it were treasure, his lips quivering before he whispered, "God bless you, son. I will never forget this." In that instant, a warmth spread through Arnel's chest, far greater than the pangs of hunger or the weight of worry. For the first time in a long while, he felt that maybe his struggles had a purpose, that even the smallest act of giving could change someone's entire day. The following morning, Arnel returned to school, expecting nothing more than the usual routine, classes, homework, then another long afternoon of selling snacks. But something was different. As he walked through the gates, a group of students whispered and pointed toward him, their eyes wide with curiosity. He felt his cheeks flush, unsure of what was happening. Later that day, one of his classmates approached with excitement. "Arnell, you're all over the internet." Confused, he borrowed a phone to see a video posted online. It showed him kneeling in the rain, handing food to the old man and shielding him with his umbrella. Someone passing by had captured the entire moment, and now thousands of people were sharing it. Comments poured in, praising his kindness and selflessness despite his own struggles. By evening, strangers began reaching out. A local foundation offered to support his schooling. Community members came by to buy his snacks, not out of need but to show their encouragement. For the first time, Arnell saw his mother's eyes sparkle with hope instead of worry as she said, "Your kindness is coming back to you, my son." What had started as a quiet act of compassion had turned into a wave of generosity that reached far beyond Davao. Arnell realized that people everywhere, people he had never met, had been touched by his simple choice. His one act of giving had sparked a ripple, proving that kindness, no matter how small, can travel farther than anyone imagines. Months later, life looked completely different for Arnell. Instead of walking the streets with a basket of snacks, he now carried books, his school fees fully covered by the scholarship he had received. His mother, no longer burdened with endless worry, walked beside him with pride shining in her tired but joyful eyes. Every time he passed the spot where he had first seen the old man, his heart tightened with gratitude. One afternoon, his teacher invited him to speak before the school assembly. Nervous but determined, Arnell stood at the front of the hall, facing hundreds of students. His voice trembled at first, but then he spoke from the heart. "That day in the rain, I didn't think anyone would notice what I did. I only knew that someone needed help more than I needed comfort. What I learned is that kindness always finds its way back, often in ways we can't imagine." The hall grew silent, every ear listening, every heart moved. Some students wiped away tears, others bowed their heads in reflection. In that moment, Arnell wasn't just a boy from Davao, he was a reminder of the power each person carries within. As he stepped down from the stage, his mother embraced him tightly. The journey had been hard, but it had brought them here, to a place where hope outweighed struggle. With a smile, Arnell whispered to her, "Kindness changes everything." And he knew, deep down, that this truth would guide the rest of his life.